Welcome back everyone, Oz here, and today we're taking a look at r/LetsNotMeet. These are mildly horror stories involving encounters with strangers that give you the feeling of, yeah, let's not ever meet. Anyways, I hope you enjoy this episode and let me know if you want more of this in the future. This one's brought to us by DarkMoon9090. Creepy acts of kindness or possible stalker. So first of all, let me start by saying that I'm dyslexic, so if my spelling or grammar is off, I apologize. I'm 25, female, from England. So I've never actually met this person, so I hope this can actually go on this Reddit form. If it can't, please let me know. This started about 5 months ago, and first of all, was quite a pleasant interaction, but it slowly got worse and more creepy. So it all started about November or October. I noticed that my wing mirror on my car had been put inwards. I park a street away from my house, so I have a short walk to my house. My house is on a main road with one drive and my parents park on the drive. I asked my mother if it was her, as it was a thoughtful thing to do. She refused it was her, and my father also said it wasn't him. So I thought it was just a kind soul or a thoughtful person. After all, where I park has a lot of older people and they always say good morning to me when I set off to work. This continues for the months onward. It has only recently stopped since parking away from that side street. I asked a couple older people on the street and they said it wasn't them either. At this point, I really just wanted to say thank you. So I continued going to work and didn't notice anything else until the winter weather got worse. December 2023 was when the weirdness continued. The frost kicked in and the snow started on occasions. Since I set off from work at 7 a.m., it can be frosty at the time and I would need to de-ice my car. About mid-December, I remember running late for work and it was 7:15 a.m. and I still had not de-iced my car. So I was doing a careful rush to my car as it was very cold and icy, only to get there and see it had been de-iced for me. I was so confused but a little happy, but also shaken. It was a strange feeling. Again, I asked my parents and anyone I saw on the side street. It wasn't any of them. My mom laughed and said, "You might have a secret admirer." Well, it's like she was a fortune teller. The de-icing of my car happened a few more times on very icy days. From January onwards is when it got strange, to the point I started parking elsewhere, as mentioned above. About the end of January, start of February 2024, I saw what I can only describe as homemade food left on top of my car. Don't worry, I didn't eat anything. I ended up throwing these away once I got to work, but I found the situation was getting beyond strange. Around the same time the first letter or note was left, it was written in what I would only describe as doctor handwriting. It was basically asking if I enjoyed being treated like, and I quote, "the princess I deserve to be treated like." I brought this home and showed my parents, and they didn't like this at all. My dad said he was going to start parking on the street and I can park on the drive for a while. I said that would be a good idea. However, if this person was looking for my car, then they would know which house was mine. My dad agreed, but also pointed out that he or she may have already been watching me and may actually know where I live. He stated the main thing was me walking home from my car to the house at 8:15 p.m. I work 12-hour shifts. He stated that he would sort the situation out if anything had happened. I questioned possibly going to the police, and he stated they would laugh at us without any proof. He was right. We didn't have anything. I didn't like the idea of parking back on the street, so I didn't. Now it's April. I stopped parking on the drive a few weeks ago, and now I've started parking on a different street still close to my house. Nothing has happened since February, and I hope it doesn't, as it was starting to get worse. Do I have a stalker or just someone trying to fuck with me? I'll try to answer whatever questions you have when I can. Too long not read. Creepy acts of kindness have been happening to me, and it might be the start of a stalker. OP also has posted an update comment below. Edit from OP. I just realized I didn't mention the other note was found. It didn't stand out as much as the first one I mentioned. And I started to move my car after the second one was found. It's basically just saying, "You're welcome." Again, in a doctor sort of handwriting. First and foremost, I just want to step it. This is definitely entering stalker territory. I'm not a fan of someone touching my car, so I would personally be really upset, but I can see that this started with good intentions paving the road to hell. Guys, don't do this. What probably started as a kind gesture here and there has very quickly escalated into entitlement, especially with that "you're welcome" note. They definitely had further intentions following their actions with that note, and that is really uncomfortable. Personally, I'm of the stance of don't touch my car, but in this case, the guy was originally doing something which seemed to be appreciated from OP. The best way to do this is to not start leaving home-cooked meals and notes on top of the vehicle, especially because a home-cooked meal being left in the car could scratch it. But that being said, this is definitely a stalker forming from their original good intentions, and that is really uncomfortable. So yes, Dark Moon 9090, I hope you don't meet this person. Especially with that "you're welcome" note being left. That's a huge yikes. Pale Jello 4141, stalker at the group home. Back in 2018, I was 17 around the time. Living in foster care, the group home was situated on a busy street. Despite living in the city, we had a backyard, basketball court, picnic table, and at the very back, some grass. The whole backyard was surrounded by 2-meter-tall chain-link fences. There were houses to the right and left of ours. At the very back of the yard, on the other side of the fence, there was a public walking/biking path that stretched at least a dozen kilometers. This path would take you through this huge park along the water, to the beach, etc. It is a very popular area for people to visit. I was a regular cannabis smoker, although I was always very well put together for a teenager. The group home workers agreed to turn a blind eye on me as long as I didn't make it obvious. So, on weekend mornings, I'd go for a walk to the park behind the house, I'd roll up on the park bench and smoke. One day, everything changed. It was a weekend morning as usual at 7 a.m. I made my way to my favorite park bench. I'm sitting there with my joint in my hands. It was quite windy, and it kept lighting out. Facing the water, about 100 meters of field between the water and I noticed a man stomping through the field, heading straight for me. He didn't seem like he was on a leisurely walk at all. I remember thinking to myself, 1, why is he not using the paved path? 2, why does it seem like he's walking straight towards me? And 3, what is he holding? 4, is anybody else around? Panic ensued. He was holding something chunky in one of his hands. I looked around for someone, noticed an elderly woman walking from the direction of the group home. She was about 20 meters away from me. I sped walk towards the woman. By the time I got to where the man had made it to the bench I was sitting on, the woman kept walking towards the bench, and I, the opposite direction. For a moment, I looked back to make sure the man wasn't following me, or worse. I see the man lay his brick down on a pile of rocks behind the bench. The woman stopped walking. I'm guessing she had processed something peculiar. Thankfully, the man kept moving straight towards the boulevard, and not to be seen in the park. The woman then turns around and she looks at me with this shocked stare in her eyes. I remember feeling reassured. We both continued on with our days without saying a single word. The same day, around 9 p.m., people aren't allowed to smoke within 10 meters of an entry to an establishment, and there was only one light in the backyard. It was above the entry to the establishment, so this girl in my group home goes out for a smoke in the backyard. No lights. Like 3 minutes later, she's banging on the door yelling. I let her in. She's freaking out. We're trying to get answers out of her, then she explains. There was a man. He stood there on the path. She watched and stared, taking pulls of her cigarette. The man starts to walk towards her, and then starts climbing the fence. That's when I shared my story from that same morning. To be honest, I thought I was being paranoid at first, but when someone tried to hop the fence, I believe it was the same man. The workers on shift that night called the police, and the police started patrolling the path at night. The group home added some garden light in the back, and I hope this piece of shit never lays hands on anyone. This is indeed a Let's Not Meet, because there is no way of knowing what the ending intentions were, because this could have been bad. And I also can't help but to feel the group home may have been a target because there's not as much of a support system put in place because they're in foster care. So that makes it even more a bit of a yikes situation in general. This one's brought to us by Binch Lauren. Man waited for me after my friend's shift. I, 23 female, was staying with my friend who is also 23 female for a couple of weeks in the town I grew up in. She works at a restaurant. Without giving away too many details about the location, it's a plaza with a river nearby, a movie theater, restaurants, and some boutiques. We entered through the parking garage, which has 3 stories, both elevators and stairs. This is important. She had a 6-hour shift, so I decided to do some shopping, listen to music, and walk around before eating at the restaurant my friend works at. I was sitting at the bar on the corner alone, listening to music. A bigger man approached me. He had a security guard beanie on that was incredibly dirty and tattered up. He was muttering, and his eyes were barely open. What I got from his muttering was, is anyone sitting? But keep in mind, it was incredibly muttered. I'm just guessing what he was trying to say. All of this was said while he was switching back and forth between looking into my eyes and staring at my chest. I told him multiple times I couldn't understand what he said. After a bit of a back and forth, I put my headphones back around my neck and he left me alone. I told my friend about what happened immediately. I tried to shake it off, hoping it was an isolated incident. If this is where the story ended, I wouldn't be writing this, unfortunately. About an hour later or so, I see someone approach the bar to my left out of the corner of my eye, and I felt their eyes on me. I didn't look, but somehow I knew it was him. My heart started beating really fast. I texted my friend and told her I felt really sketched out. I wanted to believe that I was misreading things and was just letting my anxiety get the best of me, but I couldn't shake the feeling. 30 minutes or so later, she gets off. As we walk towards the parking garage stairs to get to our car, I saw him sitting on a bench, waiting for me. The benches aren't super close to the elevators. They're closer to the restaurant, if anything. The second I spotted him, my blood ran cold. He saw us walking towards the stairs to the parking garage and started running towards us. I was face to face with him by the time we got to the top of the stairs. We booked it back to the restaurant and used the employee elevator to get to our car, and an employee escorted us to the car as well. The employee told us there are a lot of cases of homeless people who walk around the restaurant, so I presume he was homeless and just walking in and out of restaurants until he saw me. I'm incredibly thankful I trusted my gut and I saw him. I don't know what would have happened to us if I didn't see him at first, but I don't want to find out. To this stranger, let's not meet. Too long didn't read. A man attempted to approach me multiple times while I was at the bar alone. He waited for me on a bench and chased me to the parking garage when he saw me walk out of the bar. I'm on mobile, so I apologize if the formatting is shit. Please ignore my typo in the title. Additional edit. 6 hours isn't that long. That's what you're focused on? I can only imagine that edit was necessary because people were, well, in the comments of this thread being kind of assholes. Yeah, it's definitely not what you should be focused on here. I would say even if this guy was just a really awkward flirt and had no malicious intentions, that OP had every right to, get the hell out of there. Especially because she has no way of knowing what the intentions are. Guys, if you see someone in a public space and they look busy, don't interject yourself into their day just for a chance of possibly getting laid. That's not how that works. This one's brought to us by Sip of Sunshine. I was someone else's Let's Not Meet. This was years ago, but I still tell this story to my friends anytime I get the chance. I was the baddie in someone's Let's Not Meet. When I was in high school, I entered a relationship with a very close friend named Ivory. After Ivory and I broke up, we stayed good friends. And when Ivory's birthday came around, she asked me to come to the birthday party she was having. The first leg of the evening was at a restaurant I'd never been to a few towns over. Afterward, we would all return to a mutual friend's house for beverages and relaxation. One of Ivory's friends had volunteered to drive us out to the restaurant, but I'd heard plenty of stories about her terrible driving. As a result, I opted to chauffeur myself in my luxurious minivan. Yes, I drove a minivan in high school. Ivory's friend told me 7 p.m., so at 7 p.m., my black ace, am I allowed to say that? My complexion is moonburn complexion. I gotta be careful in the moonlight, so I think I'm like the least qualified person to ever utter that statement in this planet. Anyways, so at 7 p.m., I rolled into the parking lot. I called Ivory to let her know that I had arrived, but they were just leaving. I overheard Ivory tell her friend, if you tell Sip of Sunshine 7, he's there at 7. This all meant I had about a half hour of boredom before I'd have company. Being the introvert I am, I decided not to go inside and wait like a normal person. Instead, I decided to listen to whatever angsty music I was into at the time, probably Heartbeat by Childish Gambino. Moreover, I also didn't park right near the restaurant. The restaurant was located in a plaza, a strip with several other stores along either side. For some reason, I thought it'd be weird for patrons to see me just sitting there like some waiting weirdo. Instead, I parked at the far end of the plaza by a supermarket. I could still see the restaurant, and there were fewer cars on this side of the parking lot. 5 minutes go by, I'm rapidly switching through songs. 10 minutes go by, I'm bored like a piece of pine in a woodshop class. Out of the abyssal silence of boredom, I felt the hum of a text come through. Ivory had texted me, "Thank God." A brief reprieve from this boredom. As I'm composing a response, I get this weird feeling. You know that feeling like someone is watching you, like you can almost hear their eyes? I felt something unnerving, so I looked up from the glow of my phone into the darkness before me. What I saw was a family of 4. There was a woman, her husband, and their 2 children. All 4 were looking at me intensely. The woman was standing in front of her 2 children with her hands outstretched, as though to shield them from a proleptic and palpable existential danger. The look in her eyes was of sheer horror, like a waiter had just asked her, "Is Pepsi okay?" I have never seen such utter panic so visible in someone's face. and I once had to physically intervene to prevent an armed assailant from attacking someone. The woman slowly creeped forward, family inching behind her. She began moving towards the driver's side closer to me with each step, and with each step, her terror rising. At this point, I'm beginning to panic because I have no clue why this woman and her family are snarling at me so aggressively. Did they mistake me for a Jeet pie? Without warning, the husband says something I could not hear through the glass. He extends his arm and points to my left. His wife, children, and I all simultaneously follow his hand. He was pointing 5 spots to the left of my car where an almost identical one sat. The mother threw her head back in a single burst of laughter as she unlocked her car. This family left the grocery store to find a black teen dressed in all black sitting in their car. He then proceeded to maintain eye contact for what felt like an eternity. My perplexed expression likely appeared as a more sinister one, especially in the crepuscular light. I'm just glad they realized where their car was before anyone got hurt or the police got called. So, family who thought I was in their car at night, I promise we totally can meet. I'm actually a really nice guy who doesn't steal cars. Too long didn't read, family thought I was stealing their car because I was sitting in my car to pass the time. Pretty sure the panic literally shaved years off of that poor woman's life. Edit. I just wanted to thank everyone for being so encouraging about my writing. You all inspired me to take it very serious as a hobby. I'm sure you'll see me around on some writing subreddits. You lot are truly wonderful. This was an absolute delight to read and narrate. Phenomenal job, Sip of Sunshine, and this was actually probably one of my... This might be my favorite Let's Not Meet story because it's just solid. I love it. This one's brought to us by Responsible Carpet 43. The bad feeling that saved my life. Hello, my name is Christoph and I'm a high school student in my first year, so I'm 16 years old. This story took place during the second week of Easter vacation in 2023 when I was 15 years old, and I want to mention that it happened at my mother's house. At the time, my mother had decided to renovate the kitchen because it was really outdated, so there was a blonde guy with blue eyes who came to start the work, which involved putting up plastic sheets in the walls and a divider in my living room, which is next to the kitchen. At the end of the day, I had to go to the dentist and pick up a dental impression, and my mother had informed the worker that we would be back in an hour and 30 minutes. However, since the appointment was just to pick up an item, we returned in only 45 minutes. On the way back, my mother suggested getting kebabs and doing a good deed by dropping off the worker at the train station. When I returned to offer him a ride to the station, I noticed he was very uneasy with a nervous smile, as if to say everything was fine. I insisted that he come with us, and he agreed. Along the way, he explained that his name is Brian. I'm changing his name for anonymity. And that he was originally from Moldova. He also mentioned that he lived alone in Paris, but had 2 children living in his home country. We arrived at the station, dropped him off, grabbed our kebabs, and went home. After finishing eating, I decided to take a bath, as I love doing that all in time. However, this time, to my dismay, the water turned from hot to cold, so I spent 2 hours in lukewarm water. Then, got out and returned to my upstairs room. Immediately, upon opening the door, I noticed that my PC was open and turned on to my lock screen wallpaper, even though I distinctly remembered closing it before going downstairs for my bath. I asked my mother if she had been in my room or touched my PC, and she said no, that she had stayed in her room watching the news. After a quick search of my room turned up nothing, I decided to finally go to sleep. But at 5 a.m., I woke up sweating and shivering intensely, which had never happened to me before. I had a feeling of danger, and that something or someone was nearby. So I grabbed a knife because, yes, it's a bit scary, but I have a passion for edged weapons, probably from manga. And I have a collection of knives, katanas, and shurikens on my bedroom wall. With the knife, I searched my room again, but found nothing. However, the feeling didn't go away. So I locked my door and messaged my mother to see if she was awake and had the same feeling. But she didn't respond. I waited for 3 hours until I heard her walking in her room. She came to see me and I explained what happened that night. She told me I was probably just being paranoid and then everything was fine. She also warned me that Brian would arrive around 10 a.m. to continue the work, and since she would be leaving for work, I would be alone with him. She assured me that I wouldn't need to go downstairs to let him in because she had told him she kept the keys in a woodshed next to the door. She then went to work, and I went back to sleep, locking my door. I woke up at 11:30 a.m., went downstairs to make food in the basement because the kitchen was under construction, and when I didn't find Brian there, I didn't think much of it. I went back upstairs and I ran into him. As soon as I saw him, that bad feeling returned, but he started talking to me. I tried to end the conversation and quickly went back to my locked room. 10 minutes later, Brian knocked on my door, asking for help carrying something. I didn't respond because I really didn't want to see him again. But he started trying to open the door and began kicking it hard, so my first instinct was to grab a knife, lock myself in my bathroom, which is in my room, and call the police. I explained in a panic what was happening, and the woman on the line said she was sending 2 cars, which would arrive in 10 minutes. While waiting, Brian managed to enter my room and began breaking down the bathroom door. I told him I had called the police, that they would arrive any minute, that I was armed with a knife, and that I wouldn't hesitate to use it. Upon hearing this, he stopped banging on the door and left. The police arrived and caught Brian as he was trying to flee. My mother immediately came home, saw me, and burst into tears, telling me she should have listened to me. A few days later, the police called to explain that Brian was wanted for kidnapping, identity theft, torture, and murder. I believe that bad feeling I had during the night was him returning and hiding outside my room in the house because he knew where the spare keys were hidden. But now he's in prison, and I hope to never see him again. I'd be very interested to get some audience input on this, what everyone's general thoughts are. I, of course, have my own, but I think for this particular one, I'd be more interested to get everyone else's vibes in the story and just kind of see what everyone's feeling on it. At the end of the day, I'm just really happy that Kristoff and everyone's alright, and this did not end with the most horrible possible outcome that could have come from this. And this goes to everyone else. I hope everyone stays safe out there and that you all have a wonderful night, evening, morning, or whatever time of day it is for you. Thank you all for tuning in, and outro. Don't forget, this is brought to you by Gamersubs, and in fact, Gamersubs is actually launching a new flavor today, strawberries and cream. It's a limited time offer from what I understand, so use code KEYZ at checkout for 10% off at this flavor that I'm really excited for, honestly. I've got mine already in the mail. Also, don't forget, it's only $40 with 10% off at code KEYZ for $36 for 100 servings of caffeine. It's pretty good, and considering the fact that you really only need to have the servings and you can use 2 scoops and 32 ounces for a really good mix, this stuff lasts for a while. I still have flavors that I've been using since January. It's good, alright? Trust me, I love this stuff, genuinely. Code KEYZ at checkout. Also, that cream is pretty fucking sus, not gonna lie. I love it.